Hey guys, so we're post-Easter now. We're in this season that is usually understood as the Easter season, between Easter and Pentecost, and it's a season where there's supposed to be much celebration. There's supposed to be happiness and joy, but that's not what we're feeling, right? You know, this doesn't seem like a happy time of life for anybody right now because due to the quarantine, the coronavirus, and everything. People are losing their jobs. There's a lot of instability, and a lot of people are anxious. And so this doesn't seem like a time to celebrate, a time to be joyful. And really that's the feeling that the disciples had on the very first Easter. And so I think we can relate a lot to the disciples here. And so I want to read to you about the first Easter and kind of explain kind of maybe how we can relate and what it means to us today. And so where we're going to pick up, I'm going to read from John chapter 20. And what happened was Jesus was raised from the dead. He left the tomb. Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early that Sunday morning and discovered it was empty. So she ran back and told the disciples. And then John and Peter decided, hey, we want to see the tomb ourselves. So they run to the tomb and they find it empty as well. And clearly no one understands what the empty tomb means yet, because they go back and that's where we pick up the story. So that they've seen the empty tomb, but they don't understand it. And so they go back, and here in John chapter 20, verse 19, it says, "On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were, for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, 'Peace be with you.' When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. And Jesus said to them again, 'Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even so I am sending you.'" And so there's a couple of interesting things there that, like I mentioned, that they didn't understand what the empty tomb meant. So they were locked in a room, all the disciples together, in fear of the other Jews. Jesus had risen. The world had changed. The biggest event of all of history had just happened, and they were on the front row seats for it, and they were scared. They were locking themselves in a room because they didn't understand the reality of what was happening in the world. They weren't aware of it, or at least their thoughts and feelings were not aligned with reality. And that's where we are too, that we are living in a time where God is alive, God is working and moving in people, and hearts are being changed, but at the same time our thoughts, our emotions aren't in that season of celebration. And I understand, because some of us have lost our jobs. Some of us are feeling that financial crunch or the worry about health. And I get that. I'm not trying to discount that at all. But at the same time, we also have that reality that Jesus is alive and Jesus is working and moving in people's lives. And so what Jesus says to the disciples, I believe he's saying to us right now. That Jesus says, "Peace be with you." The disciples were scared. They were anxious. They didn't understand what was going on in the world. And Jesus says, "Peace be with you." And then he says it a second time, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even so I am sending you." And so I think this is a season where we need to stop and think. We've been so consumed with, how are we going to survive this? What's going to happen next? When will this end? Am I going to be okay? We've been thinking about ourselves a lot. And that's understandable. I've been doing it too. I understand. But Jesus is saying that I am sending you. We have been sent to be a light in the world. And so let's take a moment today to stop and think, how can I be a light in the world? How can I be sent from where I'm at? And obviously with the social distancing and stuff, we can't physically be sent to places, but what can we do with an encouraging phone call or a text, or how can we give sacrificially to a need that we're aware of already, or I don't know what it is. That for every person, we're being sent in different ways. God wants something unique for each of us. And so what is God saying to you? Have I stopped and listened and asked God, what do you have for me today? What do you have for me tomorrow? Or have I been too busy talking, saying, God, save me? We need to take a moment, and we of course should pray about our own needs, but we should also stop and pray about the needs of others and see what we can do for others. How can we live in the season of Easter? How can we live with the reality Jesus is alive and he has overcome death, and that's a joyful celebratory thing, but we're also in the midst of suffering in this world. So how can we be a light in that dark world, in this dark moment. And so that's my thought for you guys today. I'd love to hear back from you on what God's doing in your life. So yeah, have a great day.